on DAZN worldwide, May 2nd and 3rd. A knockout weekend of boxing. Garcia versus Romero and Canelo versus Skull. 2 huge fights. Pick one or go all in for only $90. Exclusively on DAZN. Buy now at DAZN.com.
This is Joe Pugh for IFLTV. We're here outside the Park Plaza, Westminster. It's a little over 36 hours after the big night. Yeah, it's over 36 hours now.
Feels longer.
It does. It's been a long week. It's the end of a long week. Before we start, how are you?
Buzzing.
Yeah.
Saturday night was just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We're going to cover everything, but first things first, how is Chris Eubank Jr? Understand he's just been discharged from hospital.
Genuinely, he's doing really well. And he's really happy and he's really over the moon. You know, you can see the outpouring of love and adulation that perhaps he's fought for his whole career. And yeah, he's over the moon. He's just taken part in one of the biggest events, the biggest nights of all time, and come out victorious and carried himself so well. And as I say, doing really well and really healthy. And yeah, I'm sure you'll hear from him soon.
As far as we understand, as far as you've put comments out saying it was precautionary measures, that's why he did leave the ring, basically go straight into an ambulance to the hospital. Yeah, just to clear up, definitely no broken jaw.
Just another narrative span from absolutely nowhere. I don't know who came up with that one, but it was a good one. It's got to a stage in Chris's career where he's been through a lot, and so is his dad, where in a 12-round fight like that, there's no choice but not to go to hospital. You need everything checked. The exhaustion, the energy that goes into something like that. It was heavy, and so we went straight to hospital. And as I say, within about 24 hours was absolutely fine. And yeah, it's just everyone's smiling because no one deserves it more than him. This is a man that really deserves what he just did on Saturday night.
After a fight like that, it's hard for everyone not to be so high on what they've just seen, but when it comes to the seriousness of a fighter going to hospital in such a grueling fight like that, was there any point where you was worried about Junior?
Look, you're worried seeing a fight like that for both guys, but no, once we'd been told, look, he was in the hospital within about an hour of the fight, once they had hold of him and told us everything was fine, and he had his initial scans, you know, the relief, everything you've just got through, you can't celebrate until you get the A-OK. But since then it's been fantastic. And yeah, as I say, when you see fights like it can be scary. I'm sure it was scary for all the families involved. But as I say, he deserves that, and it was a horrendous. Look, he'll talk in good time, but there was a couple of things that happened in camp, just things that most fighters would have never continued with the fight with, and he didn't want to let anyone down, and that was the genuine truth. And he came through so much during that time. To the fact that he even got in the ring, he'd won, and then to do what he did was just like, wow.
Was there ever any question of this fight being pulled at any point?
There was, because there was. Any normal fighter in Chris's position and what happened, certain things wouldn't have gone ahead with that fight. Nothing to do with weight, nothing like that, but it just wouldn't have done it. But he did it. He's a warrior, and he came through and he put everything into it, and I've never seen anything like it. This is a guy that goes up against the establishment. This is a guy that speaks his truth. This is a guy that doesn't mince his words, but is extremely respectful, extremely honest, never can be accused of telling a lie. And to see what he's done, and basically had a night where he won everything that he did, all the battles he's been through, all the stuff that's been levelled at him. He won. 2.5 years ago, he was sat there having boiled down to a weight that he should have never been at, and being told the fight was off through no fault of his own. 3 years later, he is the people's champion. He is the hero, and rightly so, because there's not many good guys in boxing. He's one of the good guys, and I truly believe that, and he deserves it.
Good. Well, now the important stuff's out of the way. I want to circle back round to the start of Saturday. Saturday morning, we see he made the rehydration clause.
Yeah.
From your perspective, was that always a case of him making that £170 limit?
100%. And look, he made the 160 limit as well. You're talking about half an ounce, and not to go on about it, but the whole thing. First of all, I saw a lot of things around the promoter's not done his job, and it shouldn't have been done to do this. Last time, it was 157. This time, it was the middleweight limit. We worked hard to make sure that's the case. Anything less than that is just not safe. There's limits, middleweight limits for a reason. He makes that weight. He's made that weight the last 4 or 5 times. He's never missed weight in his career. He did it. The circumstances around the weigh-in was what it was. Luckily, the people involved understand that. He's half an ounce off. The one that they cared about, he made comfortably in his Louis Vuitton jacket on the morning of the day, and weighed in absolutely fine. And he's the ultimate professional. The most frustrating thing for me was that half an ounce was the one thing that anyone could ever level against him. And as I say, 15 minutes, he makes that weight absolutely no problem. I've had fighters come in 3 pounds over, 4 pounds over, and lose the weight given a period of time. So look, looking back on it now, he made the weight well, and yes, so Saturday morning was no problem.
As far as I'm aware, when a fighter misses weight, they get an hour to go away and kind of get that weight off, whether it's a bit of skipping or whatever. But was he not given that hour?
They took it from an hour from when Conor Benn came in, so he got about 15 minutes. He was travelling across London. It took absolutely forever. Sometimes you just need some common sense. There was zero common sense. But what does it matter now? He made the rehydration. As I say, he's the ultimate professional. Whatever they would throw at us, we overcame. And he had the last laugh, and what a moment that it was.
First fight of the night, Chris Smith, Brandon Glanton. Your man does it.
Yes.
First of 3. Pleased with Chris Smith's performance?
Chris Smith had a hard camp, a terrible camp. I don't think he mind me saying, but at times they were going to pull him out as well. So to see him come through after what happened with Zerdo Ramirez was really good. It was a tough fight. Brandon Glanton's tough and throws a lot of punches as well. It was a great fight for someone watching at home. It was a typical Chris Smith fight in terms of a lot given and a lot taken. But it was a clear winner and a great fight in the end. And then for me, Vidal Riley was superb. And sometimes I feel like his reputation precedes him, in the sense that the millions of followers mask people's opinions of how good a fighter he is and what a warrior he is, and the fact that he's demanded these opportunities and to go through it the tough traditional route. And he made Chev Clark look, and no disrespect to Chev, who's a great fighter and Olympian, he looked a level above. And I'd say Chev Clark's European level, not just British level. So for me, the performance of the night, and someone was so excited to get going with. You know, you've got a guy here that can go right to the very top of the sport, but has an audience like no other fighter. Incredible performance. Great for him in front of Spurs. His dad as well. You know, you have a lot of fighters that come in with their dads, and and there's always that suspicion as to whether they're a proper trainer and this and that, but never with his dad. And he's a proper boxing man, and he deserves it as well. He's taken Badu from the very start and developed him perfectly in the corner where it was really, really good. There was a slippy canvas that made it trickier, but for him and his dad, this was all they ever wanted. Forget the money, forget the fame, forget the numbers on social media. It's refreshing to have a fighter and a family that care about winning a title and doing things the traditional way, and he's been nothing but a pleasure to deal with since day one.
Just one on Chris Smith. Are you going to be pushing for that Jar Pattaya fight?
Look, that I would like the Badu Jack fight because it's a WBC title that he's never fought for. I'm with Martin next week and Saturday. Obviously, I think Badu's still on the card, even though there's been a replacement. So, hopefully that's what we can make. We want a big fight for Chris, regardless. A big name. He's at the stage of his career where he wants the big nights, big fights, and we've delivered some unbelievable fights for him. And it was great to see him out, and now he can, hopefully bounce right into a big one.
Okay, so whilst all this is going on, backstage, there's bedlam. Good and bad. Start off with a good side.
Yeah.
That shot of the car opening up. Chris Eubank Sr. walks out. It was goosebumps.
Can you imagine being a kid at home, watching that and watching boxing for the first time? You'd think you're going to be disappointed, aren't you? Because that was like, fuck. That was the best TV boxing has ever produced. It was ridiculous. When I got told an hour before...
Just to confirm, it was an hour before?
An hour before. This is not scripted. This is just crazy, crazy life of the Eubanks. But it was absolutely nuts. When I got told an hour before, I'd gone up to we had a box for like my family and friends, and I'd gone up there because we'd had the first two fights. It'd gone well. And I found out, and I couldn't contain myself. I knew it was absolutely going to explode. And when the car door opens, it's like, I think people have said it, but it's like WWE. It's like when when Kane or the Undertaker appears, and everything was just going off, and it was emotional. It was amazing to see. Everyone felt the same. This is a father and son. It was really distressing to see some of the stuff that Senior had said, so for it to come together like that and them to get back together at that moment, and Senior will be cherish that decision for the rest of his life, and to see how much his dad enjoyed it. But that moment in British boxing will go down in absolute history. You cannot write that shit. That was wild. That was that was Hollywood films. As long as I am in this sport, I don't think I'll ever experience anything like that again. That was just mind-blowing. And so happy for Junior, because the adversity that he's come through, people don't even know. Like, they do not know. But one thing that he's got the same as his dad is he's got class, and he doesn't sink to levels, and I truly believe that. And they fight for what they believe in and what they believe is right, and to see it all come together, it was unbelievable.
How much did that lift Junior at all?
Listen, you saw his smirk coming in. That was a man that knew he had it. That was a man that knew the place had just gone absolutely wild. That was a son that everything he'd fought for his whole life, that respect from his father, he just got it. At that moment, I don't think anything could have beat him. At that moment, it didn't matter what had happened in camp, what percentage fitness he was, what anything, he was going to find a way to win that fight in front of his father. And the most iconic picture was and fair play because they dealt with it, was Nigel and Connor watching on the TV screen. Oh my God.
What do you think they were thinking, really? Because on the Zone and Sky, it looked like they kept their cool. It looked like it was all business. But what do you think they were thinking?
My heart would have sank. Absolutely sank. And that's, I have to credit, and we'll get onto the fight, but that's why I think Connor deserves a lot of respect, because that moment was just magic. And to be on the other side of it, you know that you've just witnessed history going on the other side. You've just seen something that the crowd are going crazy. And how do you stop that momentum of the Eubank machine at that point with Junior and Senior? It was everything. It wasn't even orchestrated, but the picture, and even when Senior, he sort of comes back and stands behind him, almost to say, this is your moment, and Junior walking proudly, and then having to watch that. Jesus, that was mental. And I saw them in the change room, and at that point it just felt that they were invincible.
Did you have any conversations with Senior? Because, look, you did mention the comments that he had been made for the 10 days building up to that. And he did say the promoters are in the wrong. And you are one of those promoters.
Look, I think, let's be honest, I don't think they put me in that category. I think we have a good relationship, in the sense, like, I only knew Chris because of his brother Sebastian, and I signed Seb, and he was one of my first signings before COVID hit, and no one knew who I was. I hadn't even got, there was 4 TV deals before anything like that. There's pictures of us I was sharing with his family today that they'd never seen from prior to like 2021, and he was sort of my entry a little bit in terms of to certain sides of boxing and this and that, and so that what happened. COVID came, our business, we couldn't really get started during COVID. It was tough times for everyone. I remember Sebastian got stuck in Sudan at that time. His wife was from Sudan, and he was out there, and it was just after COVID, or towards the end of COVID, that obviously the tragedy happened. But meeting Junior and meeting his the people around him, I just feel like it's a different type of a relationship. You know, I don't think they see me as an established promoter. I think they know that I'm rebellious. They know that I'm going up against it. They know that it's difficult, and I think that's what they like. Let's be honest, Junior doesn't like to conform to convention. He will not be told what to do. Going with me was another rebellious act of Chris Eubank Jr. And I'll always thank him for that, because, as I say, I think he handles himself, and the Eubanks handled themselves in a way that boxing just doesn't. Boxing's full of lies, span stories, narratives, gaslighting, and they don't do it. And so I like to think that they weren't referring to me. I like to think that Senior wasn't, and I've always got on with them both. And was I disappointed at this comments that Senior made up until of course it was. I didn't like it at all, and I said that. I'll always be Team Chris Eubank Jr. But to see Junior get his dad back it was an amazing moment, and yeah, I'm really happy for them.
Just to move aside from every promotional beef, every promoter that Junior's been with in the past, promoter that he may go on to in the future, because we never know how this game's going to go, but do you think you'll always have that bond with not just Junior but the whole family for your relationship with Sebastian, and how the relationship come about?
Hopefully, because I think it goes beyond business now, and it's not about business. I was emotional on Saturday night because I know what Junior's been through, and he's got a very tough exterior, but what has happened to him, and he mentioned a bit of it at the press conference, and trust me, that's only half of it. Look at that video where he tells his dad that he's going to box and he doesn't take no for an answer. That is Junior. When he said, I said yes, didn't I? He said, you don't have to ask me again. When Junior says he's going to do something, he does it. He's a class act. We're all in awe of him. The whole family, everyone connected, my whole team. He stood up for what he believes is right. All the gaslighting, all the court cases, all the promoters, all the this, all the that. He won't. If he sees things that aren't right, even if it will harm himself, he'll stand up for it. Don't get that anymore. This night might have never came, but for this night, he won. For this night, he beat everyone. He beat every promoter that wanted to go and see him get knocked out. He beat promoters that have tried to perhaps stop his career. It felt like it was him against the world, and it felt like it was us against the world at times. And as I say, that's why I think he ended up with me, because he could see that what we were having to battle, and as I say, it might never happen again, but I'll always remember Saturday night. It was an amazing moment, and everyone couldn't be prouder of Chris Eubank Jr. right now. He's a special human being.
Also backstage, we see Billy Joe Saunders trying to enter the room. I see an interview with you and Billy, and you seem to be getting on okay now. But was he ever going to be allowed in that Eubank changing room?
You're not getting past Napa. What I guarantee you won't be coming into that change room. He's not going into that change room. The whole thing was a joke. It was a joke. You know, you talk about acting with class. Why are you doing that? It's not my beef between Billy Joe and Chris. He's about to go into battle, and you're going to send in that. What are you trying to cause? It was never going to happen. I'm not saying anything against Billy. It was the fact that they chose him, and the whole they've got a rivalry. We know that they don't like each other. This is about Eubank Ben that night. Anyway, it was what it was, and it was all handbags in the end, and it got dealt with.
Who did end up inspecting Junior's hands being wrapped?
I didn't know who it was. It was just part of the team, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the actual fight itself. First of all, for my money, the best ring walk I've ever seen live, Chris Eubank Jr. I know Senior added to it, but the orchestra, simply the best. It was unbelievable.
We planned that orchestra in the week because we were like, we need to do something. We heard about Conor doing the choir. We were thinking, right, we need 2 tracks. We've got to get this. We've got to get that, the orchestra. And then Chris obviously knew, perhaps, and I don't want to talk completely out of turn, but I think he knew about Senior slightly before I did.
Do you think he knew at the start of the week?
No.
No.
100% no. 100% no.
So at some point...
But when we're planning the ring walk, we were planning it all the time, so because we use the same orchestra. If you remember, Ben Whittaker had an orchestra for Crystal Palace, so we were using the same orchestra, and then things we were having to, we were just working out, and there had to be 2 tracks, and then obviously it was Simply the Best into Still, and it was so last minute. But he didn't know for long. I will tell you that he did not know for long, and they kept it because also Senior could change his mind. We've seen him that many times, but it was special. The ring walk was ridiculous. I remember the Kell Brook ring walk for Carnbrook was special. We had the same pianist. I don't know if you recognise him.
He's got to be a superstar by now.
He's like he's the boxer guy. I think he played Whittaker in on the camera night as well. There's obviously must be good rates for us, I don't know. But no, it was mental, and yeah, it took a lot of planning, and it ended up really, really special, didn't it? But then, as I say, Senior coming was a shock to everyone on that day. It really was. And yeah, I still can't get over it. I just can't imagine being at home. That must have been the best 2 hours of television you're ever going to see. Have you seen all the stuff on like TikTok and this and that, and it's everywhere, and it was that moment.
Okay, first bell goes. What are you thinking as that first round starts?
I was very confident, and then Conor Benn started well, and I knew he was going to start fast, but he looked strong, and he looked good, and then I just knew it was going to be a fight. And as I say, knowing what Chris had to go through in camp, he had to pull out something from nowhere. Like, the way he was able to bring that fight and be like, I am not losing to Conor Benn. That's what I cannot lose. He couldn't see. At one point, he's just swinging. The first round, the first half of the fight, it was very close. It was towards the end of the fight that Junior took over, and the punch, if you look at how many punches he was throwing in that 12th round, who else can do that? I think over 130 punches in that 12th round. That's not done. No wonder he was exhausted. That is just not done. And the grit and the determination to be able to do that, as I say, having known what he's been through in camp and his health and things like that, to do what he did takes resilience, resolve of another universe. But Conor Benn, as I say, was a lot better than I thought, I have to say, and he made for a great fight.
I know Junior, we're hoping, will come out and kind of explain what happened in the lead up to that fight, but just how much of a struggle was it for him to be in there on Saturday night?
I promise you now, I swear on everything, there is not one other fighter that I know that I believe gets in the ring on April 26th. They hid it. They hid things from me. Maybe you'll never talk about it. They hid things from me. I had to plan the show. They knew that it would, I had to plan the show. We had to make sure things went ahead. But what he did to make sure he got in that ring on Saturday night is nothing short of phenomenal. And so then to pull out what he did, it was just magical. It was unbelievable. If I never do another show, that Saturday night was all the shit that I've gone through to even get to this position. That night was worth it. You can never take that away from us. And I thank Chris for that, and everyone involved thanks Chris for that. They gave us a night of our dreams that we'll never forget. He went through immeasurable barriers of pain to be able to do what he did, and I'll be forever grateful to him.
Fast forward to the final bell. How confident were you that you were going to get the decision?
At that point, I knew he'd won. I thought he was I had the scorecards were spot on, and I looked at the scorecards after, and fair play. Judging gets a lot of shit at times, but I've gone through everyone, and a couple of rounds different in terms of how they got there, but you can't argue with it. And in a fight that was like that, nip and tuck, fair play. They've scored the cleaner shots, and Junior came through. But as I say, Conor Benn, the balls, he's got balls. He really does. But yeah,
I know you weren't at the press conference because you was kind of seeing to Junior, but I'm sure you would have seen it. What did you make of, first of all, the comments from Conor Benn in the aftermath of the fight?
What did he say?
He was respectful. He was very respectful.
Look, he's probably got a lot of respect for Junior off the back of that. Nothing. Look, we move on. Do they like each other now?
Do you think they'll ever like each other?
Once you cross Junior, it's difficult. He's a very, very good person, but I think what happened in the first fight, he'll find it hard to forget, if I'm honest. But he probably he'll have somewhere in there a bit of respect for what Conor did on Saturday. Will they ever like it? No, and Conor probably won't ever like Chris, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. But they shared 12 beautiful rounds and gave us a fight that we'll never ever forget.
Do you think we'll see the rematch?
Let's see. We signed for a 2-fight deal. We signed for 2 fights.
And the terms are the same, right? With the weight.
It's at the middleweight limit. It's so early to say what we're going to do next. Chris Eubank Jr. for me is now the biggest star in British boxing. That was seen by more people than you're ever likely to top. That story has touched more people's hearts in this country than I think ever in British boxing. That junior and senior relationship and story is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, but going back to your question about Conor Benn's comments, it was good to see him respectful, of course, but I don't think there's anything else you can be.
Would you want the rematch?
Whatever's the best for Junior. As I said, we signed for a 2-fight deal, and so you'd expect it to happen. I just want to enjoy. The reason why I don't want to get drawn into it is I know how much time and effort and energy it's taken to get to this point. With 36 hours from the fight, I want him to have a week of really taking in what he just did. Because for me, it was the Chris Eubank Jr. show. For me, he was the promotion. He was who sold it. He was who won everything. He was who brought that attention to that fight. And he deserves it because he's had a lot of critics during his career. So I don't want to get drawn yet into announcing what's next. I think you can probably guess what's next, but you never know in boxing.
Was a co-promotion, last one. How was it working with Matchroom, Eddie Hearn? We know you've had your ups and downs. You had your banter during the week, but when it all comes to an end, how was it working with him?
It was good. Look, I actually, as I said, I get on with Eddie. I think he likes me, but struggles to say it. 100%. Some of his comments afterwards were just. Sometimes I do feel that when you'll do anything to win, they take that literally, and sometimes I feel that it's anything. And that's what I don't like, and we were discussing, that as a team, it was almost like it doesn't matter. Things like, I'm not going to go into it, I get on with Eddie.
Are you talking about the comments he made after?
I think he said something like, Chris will have to be lighter next time, or something like that, or something. I don't.
I think he said that in jest. In all fairness, I do think he said that in jest.
That was, and then I think calling Conor Benn the people's champion. There's a lot that's been said. I like Eddie. Chris Eubank Jr. is the people's champion. Chris Eubank Jr. is by far and away the people's champion. Chris Eubank Jr. stands for truth and is a class act. They do things, and there's things that is said and done. Chris has been criticised throughout this and done this, and a lot of it has been classless. Absolutely classless, and that's what this boxing is full of. So to have someone like Junior who stood up against all that and done it, and even when people are spitting in his face and doing anything that they can to drain him and drag him down, and he's just and he's held his own. So have I enjoyed watching him with Matchroom? 100%. Do I think sometimes some of the things they do are overboard, and when they 100%. But as Senior says, and as he once told me, don't get involved. You have to pity them rather than get involved and sink to their level. And as I say, we are extremely proud of what Junior achieved. It was his show. He has behaved and carried himself unbelievably well. The whole of British boxing is behind Junior, and was throughout the promotion. And however you want to write it, however many interviews you want to do, however many things you want to say. Junior's the people's champion. It was his night on Saturday night, and he won.
Ben, thank you very much. Congratulations. And we shall catch up with you in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Thank you very much, mate.
Live on DAZN Worldwide, May 2nd and 3rd, a knockout weekend of boxing. Garcia versus Romero and Canelo versus Skull. 2 huge fights. Pick one or go all in for only $90. Exclusively on DAZN. Buy now at DAZN.com.